guys, welcome back to We Dive Deeper. I hope you've had a wonderful couple of weeks. I hope you're as happy as you can be. And if you're not, try not to worry, because everything's temporary, even our lives. Is that a bit too deep? Potentially, but that's what we do on the We Dive Deeper podcast. Look at me, I sound like a radio host, and I'm not. Okay, so today, my guest is the most special guest, my own flesh and blood, my father, my dad. I cannot believe he's agreed to come on here and do this with me. But alas, here we are. So, just to give you guys some context, my dad has never been one for strong expressions of emotion. I think that's fair to say. I don't think he'd mind me saying that. He's always found expressing his feelings quite difficult, like many men, I assume. And that at times has been quite difficult for us as a family. And like any family, we've had our ups and our downs, and some really big downs, including recently my beautiful mum passing away last August very suddenly. So there's a hell of a lot there to unpack, but I just thought it would be important to give you some of the backstory about Dad, just so you can appreciate how amazing it is that I get to talk to him like this today. On the lighter side though, he is the most interesting and insightful person, and everyone that knows him adores him, including me. And yes, maybe I'm a little biased, but I think once you get to the end of the podcast, you'll feel the same way. He's just amazing to listen to. He had a career in medicine as a GP for quite a few years. In fact, like most of my childhood and adult life. But over a long period of time, he realised that Western medicine, he couldn't really stand by it anymore. So he decided to be a holistic doctor full time, which I think is amazing. If you live in Plymouth and want help in any way, he's your guy. He is so insightful and can teach you so much. And I should probably stop rambling on about him and just let him do the talking. But I really hope you enjoy this one. I love my dad. I hope you guys love his wisdom as much as I do. And don't forget to like and comment and rate and review and share this podcast if you like it. It means the world to me. And I just love doing it. And I'm so grateful to you guys for listening. So without further ado, here is my dad. So hello, Dad.
Hello, Kate.
Welcome to the We Dive Deeper podcast. How do you feel?
Good.
Yeah? On a scale of 1 to 10, nerves.
Yeah, about 2.
2? You don't feel much, do you?
No.
I always remember saying to my friends growing up, you could crash Dad's car and kill his cat and he'd be fine with you. Because you just had you were just fine about everything.
Yeah.
Is that still true?
Yeah, it is, but like anybody, if you have a very specific trigger, yeah, you can go to 10 out of 10 very easy.
And killing cats is not your trigger?
Yeah.
You're not a
Yeah,
cat
kill
fan.
the cat.
Kill the cat. Yeah, well, that's a good start. Okay, so I have 70 questions, each one as deep and as probing as the last.
Yeah, sorry for offending any cat lovers.
You will have offended quite a few. Okay, so just pick a number between 1 and 70.
70.
You would go with 70. Okay, this is good for you.
Yeah.
When do you feel you're most vulnerable?
That's a tricky all the time.
All the time?
Yeah.
Explain.
That's probably answering the question in a thinky way rather than a feely way, because of course you are vulnerable all the time.
That makes sense.
And that's good. It's fine. I'm cool with that. But feeling vulnerable, I'm not sure I ever feel vulnerable, but I know I am vulnerable. Does that make sense? And actually being fully aware of just how vulnerable you are, i.e. you could die right now.
Yeah.
That helps you not feel it, I think.
Because there must have been times before you became a conscious being and more aware like you are now and aware of your emotions and feelings, that in certain situations were more terrifying than others.
Yeah,
socially, maybe?
I guess you've got to define your terms, because vulnerable is not the same as terrifying. It's very different.
True.
So when do I feel terrified? I guess if I don't often, but because I don't expose myself to that. But the next thing would be probably bungee jumping. That would terrify me. uh, but people don't terrify me anymore. Public speaking don't terrify me anymore. There aren't any such social situations like that terrify me.
And because I would have thought that something like this might make you feel very vulnerable, but you're just taking it in your stride.
Um, yeah, as I was saying to you earlier, trust the process. I kind of think it's fine. I'm talking to you. What's the problem?
There
You
is
know?
no problem talking
Exactly. So, what could you're not going to start kind of shooting me.
to me. Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
It would provide some entertainment.
but actually, you get to the stage. Clearly, I would be very unhappy. But if you're going to shoot me this afternoon, that's okay, really.
Ah, you're a fascinating man.
Yeah, well, that's faintly Buddhist. I'm not a Buddhist, but that's the Buddhist thing is becoming okay with whatever happens.
Yeah, I think if I was to kind of move more towards a religion, it would probably be Buddhism.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely.
it seems more at the center of what we're learning about.
But even Buddhism, I don't know a lot about it, but there are aspects of the religion where there's been some dodgy things going on in the name of Buddhism. So I think you can have the philosophy and the psychology of Buddhism without having that. You can even have the philosophy and psychology of Christianity without having the religion. Do you know what I
Yeah. Yeah, most people don't follow that, do they?
mean? No.
Okay, so vulnerability then. What about like childhood trauma? What was the kind of the hardest thing that you remember growing up? What was the thing that hit you the most first?
Childhood, I had an idyllic childhood, really.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, living in the country with nice parents. Um, I enjoyed school. I had good friends. I played sport and stuff. I was a sickly little child, I think.
Yeah, I heard about this, which is weird considering now you're a doctor.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you think that was?
I think it was a mixture of things looking back, and this wasn't clearly apparent at the time. I did have sort of asthma. What that was to do with it, I don't know. But also, and my siblings will back me up in this, if you were off sick from school, in primary school particularly, you got treated like a king. Well, at least I did anyway. Sorry, you guys, if you didn't. And so there was every incentive to be sick.
Yeah.
So I'm sure 90% of the times I was sick, I wasn't sick.
Yeah, because you're not really a sickly man now, that's for sure.
No, but being as there were 6 children, and this is definitely hindsight speculation. I don't remember any of this, but if you want one-on-one time with your mum, be sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because what your like relationship with your parents, I guess, not even just your mum, it wasn't most tactile, would
Not
you
at
say?
all.
How do you think that has like affected your life?
Well, it made me not tactile.
Affirmative.
Yeah. Yeah, and just a bit distant, like my dad was. Really, he was
Yeah.
a great, beautiful human being, but at a distance.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you remember that like affecting you though, even consciously, being like, oh, I wish my mum was more like this, or it's just the norm?
No, I don't remember that at all. I
No.
mean, like most people, all my life I thought I was normal, and of course, this will be a recurring theme probably if you're any good at this. Is we're always looking for, is it that or is it that, and it's nearly always that, and it's that, because of course I was completely normal, and on the other hand I was completely not normal.
Yeah. Did that like ever affect your future relationships? Because mum was obviously a very tactile person, the complete opposite of you. So how did that work? Was she did all the kind of tactility? Is that
Yeah,
word?
she did a lot of she did most of that relationship, really.
And she was just fine with that at the beginning. That was just the way it
Yeah,
was.
definitely. And remembering what it was like at that time, we had the first child pretty quick.
Yeah, how long into the marriage was it?
Well, we were married one September, and Nick was born in July.
Oh wow, yeah, that is quick.
So she's pregnant fairly quickly, and then it was just children all the time. And also I was working lots,
Yeah.
and also I was in the services. I was quite away quite a bit, and then we both used to drink too much.
Yeah.
So actually, time for connection was pretty small, really. Which, looking back in hindsight, suited me fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't work to keep a relationship going, obviously.
What do you think the moment, I guess it wasn't a moment, like it was a string of moments, but can you remember there being a time where you just thought, this suddenly isn't working?
I never thought that.
Really?
No.
It was all kind of unconscious thing.
Totally. I never, in fact, like most people, I never thought. Full stop.
Yeah.
That's a sentence. I never thought
Yeah.
of anything.
Wow.
You just kind of get up, do what you always do, and go to bed again.
So do you remember your first conscious thought then?
No, I don't. A lot of people have particular occasions when they remember that happening.
Like an awakening.
I can remember one chap I know describes an experience in Devonport Park, for instance, just seeing things as they really are. But for me, it was much more a process where I could one day sort of look back and think, oh yeah, over the last year or two, things have changed,
Yeah, because obviously from my point of view, the dad that I knew growing up, and the one now, they're completely different people. Obviously not. There was a time period in the middle that I didn't realise that you were kind of growing and evolving. But I guess that period's ongoing. But do you remember a time where it kind of began? Was it after you and Mum had broken up? Was it in the middle of that period?
No, I think it was after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it was definitely, it was a solo effort. Obviously, as it happened, by coincidence, your mum was doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, which always fascinates me now.
But it was definitely a journey, was probably precipitated by the breakup.
Yeah.
Whereas mine wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think mine was precipitated by going into more holistic work and just mixing with a different bunch of people.
Yeah, I guess I want to try and find out more about that period where you started waking up, started thinking about what you had done, like decision wise, and because it just feels like in my head you went from this dad and all this stuff happened to this awakened man who's very chilled and I can't remember seeing the evolving. I guess you did it very privately.
I don't think you can pin it down. It's a process. It's an ongoing process, and it took place over a number of years, and it's still taking place. Really, I've probably become more chilled with every year that passes.
Yeah, I can confirm that.
But I'm still have the potential to get triggered, as Claire would tell you.
Yeah.
She probably sees it more than most. She'd be smiling when she listens to that.
Yeah, because I know you don't really look back much, do you? Like it's not something that you do now. No. But how do you deal with all the past stuff and all the emotions that you have without looking back?
Well, that is an easy question.
Is it?
Yeah.
You just feel them.
Because that is my day job, really. Because when you get triggered by something, a person or an event, a situation, then the past immediately is there in your body. So you don't have to go looking for it. You do just have to feel it and acknowledge it. that's it for me.
Do you not think, I know we've spoken briefly about this before, but that things that you've made, like, so for example, I have stuff that like I may regret or feel crappy about, and just feeling those is good, but I also want to rectify those things and go back, and although you can't go back in time, go to those people and say,
Yeah.
I know X, Y, and Z, and
Yeah.
now I'm aware of it and I'm sorry. Do you think like that's an
Yeah, I think
important
sometimes
thing?
that's a good thing. Definitely, it's a good thing. But for me, again, it's partly my personality. If I just think from the moment I wake up, if I live a good life today, that's all right.
But do you not think,
Um,
and I know probably what you're going to say to this, but do you not think you have some sort of responsibility to, because other people are still maybe harboring things that include you in their emotions? Do you not think you have responsibility to try and help them on their journey by saying sorry? Or
yeah, it's tricky because in a way, no, I don't think so.
yeah,
Um,
I appreciate your
because
honesty.
yeah, because I think that's their journey.
Yeah,
Um, so it depends. I think if you're really genuinely from the inside motivated to do that, and you should do that. And the reasons for not doing it is either because you're really not um, sort of got an internal wise voice saying to do it, or because you're afraid of doing it. If you're afraid of doing it, then clearly I think you should get on and do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But it all fits in. And say if I was on the receiving end, um, and that person over there, say if it was my dad, for instance, had kind of let me down in some way, then okay, that's if he's decided, as I've decided, he's going to get in his life, and actually he is living a great life, I see that, then any feeling that I've got, it belongs to me.
yeah,
So that's not to say that he shouldn't do that, but if he does that, then it's for him, it's not really for me,
yeah,
because my journey is my journey.
yeah,
So it is a kind of subtle point, and I'm definitely not going to claim that this is the right answer
yeah,
for everybody. It's
yeah,
my answer, you know. So it's complex. So I think apologizing is a great thing, but you do that more for you if you need to, rather
right,
than for the other person. I think,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And so, how, going back to childhood, and you said you had a pretty idyllic childhood,
yeah,
I guess, I mean, Stefan, your brother's death, that
yeah.
was part more of your adult life then,
Yeah,
you'd consider?
yeah, I was 22.
Okay. Well, and that, would you say that was the first kind of big traumatic thing to have happened to you?
Um, yeah, through childhood, you have loads of what we call in the trade small t traumas,
Right.
as we were speaking earlier on when we were out earlier.
Yeah.
Just little things like little my grandson and your nephew Caleb will experience lots of little traumas today,
Yeah.
and actually they are minor, but they do affect you,
Yeah.
and sometimes more so than somebody dying.
Right.
So at that time in my life, Steph's dying was not huge for me, as you would
Really?
imagine. If you think, the only perhaps experience that you've had big time has been your mum,
Yeah.
and it would have been nothing like that. And also, I was not, I wasn't, it was clearly much bigger for my mum losing one
Yeah.
of her children. And I don't think I appreciated that at the
Really?
time. No, I was kind of wound up on my own stuff.
And were you and Steph close?
Yeah, we shared a bedroom for many years. So from that point of view, we were. But once I'd left home, I went to Cardiff to university, and 3 years later he went to Swansea, which is where he was when.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't see each other a lot.
Right.
He did come up and visit, but no,
Did
from
that
that point
grief
of view,
ever hit you then? Or was it just something that just didn't really affect you?
I don't think it did affect me that much. No.
Wow. How does
Uh,
that make you feel? Because that's kind of a strange thing to say, isn't it?
I don't think it is
Really?
necessarily. It's just there are these different personality types and attachment types, and some don't grieve massively. I've never been one to grieve much,
Yeah.
uh, briefly, but then it's done. So that's true for my dad or for my mum,
Yeah. What age were
generally.
you when your dad died? Oh, because
Uh,
I had only just been born, right? Or
yeah,
like
so I was
around
early
about.
30s then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, if you don't grieve that much, I guess, yeah, I never really thought that there could be a personality type. I thought grief was just a universal.
No, there are, like anything else, there are these extreme ends. Some people don't grieve at all, and I'm not quite at that end. And I used to have one chap who used to come and see me who could tell me, it was 3 years and 27 days since his mum died.
Right.
That's the other extreme.
Yeah.
And there are people, and it's lovely when you get a couple who are so attached to each other. They go everywhere together. They do everything together. That they are their life. And if that's the same for 40, 50 years, the downside is if one goes first, the other one is often really stuffed. And that's not a bad thing. It's just that's that
Yeah.
way of being. That's a personality. So, like all the other stuff, I didn't choose to be like that. I just didn't think, right, I'm not going to feel this. It's a programmed in your brain thing,
Yeah.
You
And
don't
I guess
choose
because
it.
you've learnt more and you're more of a conscious person now, how did like mum's death affect you differently to how Steph's did?
Um,
Obviously, there's a hell of a lot more there
yeah,
too,
it's a
but
different relationship for
yeah.
one thing. Um, but yeah, I did definitely feel it more.
Did you?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, if you can imagine what grief feels like, I think.
I think so.
So I'm sure it was less than that, but that's the resonance you're talking about. That's the vibration you're talking about. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think grief is grief. So some people maybe don't feel it that
Yeah.
much, but if you do feel it, yeah, it's a sadness, a loss. But some of these things are indescribable because they're a feeling.
Does mum's death still affect you now, or have you kind of dealt with it?
Um, Mostly, I don't think it does, but then that's because, as we spoke just now, I'm not a big griever really.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I guess it was important for us as children to see you grieve, but you're a private person,
yeah,
and um,
yeah. I used to do it in the clinic first thing in the morning when I
really,
got into work.
but you kind of give yourself time to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, definitely.
Kind of, yeah, because I've said before that I feel like grief is kind of like exercise, and you don't really want to sit there and do it, but
Yeah,
it's better for you in the long run if you get it out
yeah,
and just get it done.
yeah. So for you, obviously, the first few weeks, months, maybe it's every minute of every day, and after that, it can just come upon you.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, you can decide when you're going to do it and
Yeah.
program it in. And I think that's a very effective thing to do.
And that's what you did?
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did that process take for you?
Not massively long,
No.
probably. Matter of maybe a few weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Grief's such a weird one.
And that's not a measure because this is attachment, which is a psychological kind of phenomenon.
Yeah.
So there's the strange situation. Have you heard of that?
No.
Now, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but the strange situation is a research tool, and it's also a reproducible phenomenon. So, in the first place, it was studying attachment in children. And so the scenario is you have a little room like this,
Yeah.
and a researcher who's always female, I think, and is nice, and it's nice throughout. There's some toys to play with, and then there's a mother and child come in, and I can't remember the age of the child, but it's 2 or 3 or something. And the scenario is that the mum and the researcher will chat for a while while the child plays. Um, it's videoed, and the child also has a little heart monitor on. And then the mum will leave the room for 5 minutes, and then the mum will come back. So what happens when mum leaves the room? What happens when mum comes back? So with the securely attached child, the child's a bit distressed when mum goes, but is fairly quickly engaged with playing with the toys and then happy. Mum comes back, rushes to see her, and maybe clings on for a minute, but then quickly gets back to playing with the toys. So that's secure attachment. And the two extremes of insecure attachment, there are others. One is child just goes nuts and cries from the moment mum leaves the room till the moment she comes back, and then goes and clings and basically very reluctant to let go. And the other, of course, is the opposite extreme. Child sort of doesn't do anything when mum goes, but the little monitor's showing something.
Okay.
And then when mum comes back, again, child doesn't rush. So this child has learned to bottle its emotions,
Yeah.
And
Is that what you were
so
telling
that would
me
have
about
been me.
the other day, the avoidant attachment style? Is that what
Yeah.
you meant?
Yeah.
And there are three different styles.
Yeah, I think there are more. There's a kind of there are some more extreme sort of mental health issue sort of insecure attachments, which are kind of where a parent has been very volatile. So sometimes there, sometimes not. Then you can get sort of mixtures
Right.
of uncertain attachment.
Yeah.
So some people will be just okay. Fine. Some people in relationship will tend to be clingy, and some people tend to be avoidant.
Yeah, I'm probably the clingy one.
Yeah.
So do you reckon attachment style affects the way you grieve?
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any research done on that.
I'm sure there will be. I couldn't quote any of it. I'm not a great research quoter because it's just not good at it. But yeah, look it up.
Yeah, I will. Okay, pick another number.
40.
40. Okay, this is probably a crap question for you now, knowing you. What makes you most stressed? Does anything stress you out anymore?
Yeah, definitely. Being hurried, I think, and rushed. So I've set my life up so that I'm generally not hurried and rushed.
Yeah, I can't imagine you rushing
I didn't
anywhere.
really do that on purpose, but it sort of has happened. We all have a little set of unwritten rules in our head, and if people break those rules, they do things they shouldn't do. That will probably get me stressed a bit.
Where do you think that comes from?
Certainly comes from parents. I couldn't particularly say where it came from because I don't remember, not because I don't want to. But actually, I think I was always trying to be a good kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I wasn't, or when I was perceived as not being, that was no good. So this, these triggered states, they can sometimes be where you go back to being your child self, but they can also be going back to being a version of one of your parents. You know? So actually, when I get stressed, I become parental. Yeah, and the person that I'm stressed with is put in the position of the child. Yeah.
Actually, from experience, I can totally see that is what you do.
Yeah.
How funny. I'd never realised that before.
Yeah. So if you look at something called TA, transaction analysis, parent, adult, child, we all have internal parents and internal child states. It's quite an accessible model.
Yeah. That's very cool. I have a question for you. What are your thoughts on like psychedelic drugs? Because we went to Amsterdam, tried some shrooms. I couldn't keep them down, but I really want the experience because I've heard that it can really like wake you up, make you feel things that you hadn't felt before, see the world in a different way.
Yeah. Well, obviously, psychedelics are still illegal in this country, but I have had the experience of going places where I could consume them, and the only one that I've ever consumed has been ayahuasca, and I've done that in ceremony on a number of occasions,
How many times?
probably 10, maybe more.
That is so wild to me.
Yeah, and it's been profoundly beneficial, and there is lots of research on that subject.
You love your
And
research.
yeah, and a number of, I can't quote it, but I do love it. And the number of sort of Western psychiatrists are pushing really hard to get more research done, and they're achieving that using maybe smaller doses of psychedelics, whether it's psilocybin or whether it's synthetic. And I think there is definitely a future in it, particularly for me, plant psychedelics. I'm biased because that's been my own personal experience.
Would you try any more?
I'm not sure whether I would or not, because for me it's I would need to have an intention that I wanted to satisfy.
Yeah, you don't just go and just try them for the lols. You normally go with something that's pulling you, right?
No, I can imagine, if I'd had a different life and if I'd been exposed in teenage time, I might have been doing it for the experience, but no, it's each time you do it now, when I haven't been there for quite some time, over a year, maybe nearly 2 years, there is a particular intention that you have, because it's like doing therapy, but having a little bit of a fast track.
That's so cool. Can you tell us of any experiences or like the top ones that you can remember that really changed your life?
Well, of one I can remember, which was not during this ceremony, but it was the next day when you share your experiences. And I was sitting with a bunch of people, none of whom I'd ever met before.
Right.
And just sobbing away.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah. And so that was very cathartic.
I can imagine. Uncomfortable for you being in that setting?
A little bit maybe, but not massively so.
Can you remember what you were sobbing about?
I'm not even sure that it matters.
Right.
But I know I can't. But and it may not even have been about anything.
Right.
Because,
it was just emotions coming out of you.
Yeah, and because a lot of this emotions, who knows where they come from, but they may well be programmed right from day one, or in the womb, or as you could speculate, past lives. I'm not saying I believe in that, but who's to say?
Yeah, who is to
I've not
say?
experienced it, but I know plenty of people who have. What is that experience? I don't think you need to know what that is, but anyway, they can come from a time, certainly in this life, before we have conscious thought. So you won't necessarily know what they're about.
Wow.
But you just have an emotion, and an emotion is a physical thing in your body.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are other interesting experiences. I can remember experiencing some kind of rat inside me, and my first instinct was to call one of the supervising sort of healers to come and help me get rid of it.
Wow.
But then, of course, I realised part of it was me, or rather it was part of me.
Wow.
And so I didn't need to get rid of it at all. And as far as I know, it's still there.
You've just got a rat inside you.
Yeah, and I maybe think of it as a bit like part of your shadow part. You contain good and bad. You contain everything. And as long as you see it, it's okay. As if you don't see it or you pretend it's not there, then you'll probably act it out.
Wow. What an experience.
Yeah, it was very...
And do you find if the more that you did it, the lesser the experience, or were they just completely different?
A bit random. It depended maybe what was going on for me at the time, and people can think whatever they think about this, but the experience and the belief, I think, of most people who participate in ayahuasca ceremonies is that the plant sort of gives you what you need.
Wow.
So you have the experience that you need. And you do set an intention at the beginning of each ceremony about what you want to deal with, but exactly how you come to deal with that is sort of unknown until you experience it.
Yeah. Do you think that's how you have dealt with a lot of your past emotions?
I think it perhaps gave me a part of a nudge at the start.
Did it?
Yeah, but most of it has been done not with ayahuasca. So most of it's been done just since then, as it comes up, by processing the emotion as it comes up. Really.
At the at the beginning of that, kind of knowing that you needed to process emotions, was there like an onslaught of it at the beginning? All the stuff that you kind of repressed?
Again, probably typical of me. No, it's just come out at a steady sort of rate over the years.
Yeah.
Hasn't been dramatic. I have witnessed people in ayahuasca ceremonies having much more dramatic kind of physical experiences than I was having. So,
Yeah.
it's not to be entered into lightly, or
No.
it's not for the faint-hearted, I don't think necessarily. But all you're going to face is you.
Yeah, and what can be that scary about that?
Yeah,
Although
there's
that is a
nothing.
really scary thought for a lot of people.
Yeah, but there's nothing that you can't face
Yeah,
if you're prepared to.
Exactly.
Be truthful and honest with yourself.
yeah. Well, what's your opinion on people's stories and their kind of identities? Because now, obviously, I'm reading a lot of the Eckhart Tolle stuff. A lot of it is about letting go of that story and being the victim of it and living by it. What's your view on that?
Yeah. Well, again, in TA, in transactional analysis, they talk about the script that in very young childhood you sort of compose a life script. And that's at an age like Caleb is at 3 now. He'll be composing a life script, so obviously he doesn't know he's doing it.
Yeah.
But you sort of, your experience is giving you an idea of who you are as reflected by other people. So you can only know who you are in childhood by the reflection of others.
Right.
And if other people treat you in a certain way, then you kind of assume, well, that's who I am, and that's who I need to be. And your script about how life is in general, i.e. life is wonderful, life is dangerous, life is scary, life is whatever, and how other people are. And by the time you're sort of 6 or 7, you've pretty much got your script decided, and this is the person I am. This is who I've learned that I've needed to be in order to get either attention or approval or acceptance or whatever. And if you don't do anything to change it, then that stays forever.
Until you kind of wake up and realize you don't have to be that person.
But even then, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's a program
to change it. Yeah.
But what were you saying earlier about the kind of analogy of toys on the kind of run? They're being programmed, each one, and then
So little babies are born, and you can imagine that they have a key in their back, and we wind it up to set them going. And then we stick some programs in the hard drive, and off they go, programmed with their script to be that person, to behave in that way. And so when people behave badly, or as we wouldn't like, mostly they have no control over that. And for most of my life, I had no control over that. And that sounds like a fine way of not taking responsibility, not taking blame. And I think to a certain extent, you're right that there is no blame. But once you become aware from that moment on, you do have responsibility. And that doesn't mean, going back to your earlier question, doesn't mean that you shouldn't apologize. Because it's like if someone got very drunk, and the nicest person in the world got very drunk and killed a child, they didn't intend to kill the child. They should still apologise, of course. Or actually, it's a good thing to apologise. But actually, to a certain extent, if you've ever been drunk and driven a car, which I have, only once I think, but you're as guilty as the person who drove a car drunk and killed someone. Because you didn't choose to, did you? The person didn't choose to kill somebody. So if you've ever done it, then you're equally guilty, really.
Yeah. And then there are some people that do choose to kill people, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But then even that's just a program thing. Like, I can't
Mostly.
remember how you
Well,
worded
I
it.
think if that person's in prison for murdering someone, then that didn't happen randomly. I don't believe that's an evil person.
No, I
And I
don't
believe
either.
that if I'd been born in their body and lived their life, I'd be them.
Yeah.
And I'd do that.
Yeah. And I feel like once you see that and you
Yeah.
can see people for just being the sum total of who they are, like we were saying earlier,
Yeah.
it's very hard to judge people or not like
Yeah.
people or get annoyed by them because
Yeah.
you're like, I'd be exactly the same if I lived in their shoes.
I think that's it. So you can't judge people, but you can clearly judge their actions as right or wrong or good or bad.
But even that's just a label. It
It
just
is.
is what it is.
It is, but actually I think on the whole, whether you've got religion or not, murdering people is probably bad.
It's probably
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, I think
I'm not
that-
entirely sure though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, we shouldn't judge people, but of course we do. It's in our makeup. And I sometimes, my mum, bless her, the wonderful woman that she was quite judgmental. In a
I
very
can also
benign
confirm
way.
that, I think.
She would, she'd sit there reading her newspaper, reading down through it, saying, wow, these journalists don't know how to write properly, and people who read the news don't know how to talk properly.
Yeah.
And, there's a steady stream of judgment came out.
Yeah.
But it was very loving judgment.
Yeah.
And I find myself sometimes walking down the street, I see somebody across the other side of the road, and I'm judging them. I think,
What am I doing?
what's that?
But I
Shut
guess
up.
that's half the battle though, is catching it, right?
Yeah,
because a lot of
definitely.
people are just in that judgment and think that's right, that's the way life is. But if
Yeah,
you can catch
definitely.
yourself judging people, that's
Yeah.
half the battle.
But equally, in whatever way as I am a nice person, and most people actually think I'm a nice person. Don't give me any credit for that either, because mostly I didn't make myself a nice person. Somebody else did.
Yeah, that's
You
a
know?
weird thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mad.
So we didn't choose our programs. Once you become conscious, you can choose to hopefully be an even nicer person.
Yeah.
Then that's different.
Yeah. I feel really grateful to you and Mum, actually. I think I'm very lucky to have you guys as parents anyway. But when I think about everything that you've taught us, and like we were saying, it's quite funny earlier, knowing, I don't remember your relationship growing up, really. I only really remember it in the last few years.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you have more in common now, or should I say, have more in common now than you ever did before.
Yeah.
But because of that, we've all been lucky enough to have just very gradually learned all the stuff that you've learned. It's not, I imagine a lot of people don't kind of understand this stuff until later on in life, but I feel like you guys have set us up pretty well to...
Yeah, and I think maybe, and this might be partly the internet, maybe, I think your generation, there is more, and it is growing. Maybe it's polarizing, but there is more.
What would you say to anyone listening who has kind of depression, anxiety? Because that's a big thing, definitely in our generation these days. How would you help someone who came to you with those issues?
I think it's a spiritual matter, but also a very physical matter. And again, that's another example of the thing, well, is it spiritual or is it physical? And of course it's both. So there is a journey to go on, which is to find meaning in your suffering.
Right.
Which is easy to say for someone who's not particularly suffering at the time, and you need to be careful as how you say that and when you say that. But I do firmly believe, and I often point people towards a nice ebook which I have, which is called Darkness Before Dawn, It's a series of essays by people who've been depressed and got out of it by finding meaning in their depression, and it's nice. It's a nice resource.
Wow.
Because it gives you two messages. Number one, you're not alone in feeling that way, but number two, the way out is through. Um, but partly also, depression is a very physical condition, and that may be due to, we're discovering more and more that it's due to the balance of bacteria in your intestines.
Wow.
The food that you eat, the electricity around you, a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Really?
And if you change those things, if people have enough magnesium in their diet, that can affect their nervous system and make you depressed. So, but the fact that you might be able to trace this depression to the microbiome, as we call it nowadays, in your guts, or to magnesium or a number of these things, doesn't mean to say it hasn't got meaning in it. It just says that that's how it's been sort of created.
Manifested,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. When did you start going from Western medicine and just giving people antidepressants to realizing it was all this?
Well, that was again, as is typical with me, it was accidental. It wasn't intentional.
Right.
I can remember that clearly because at college and through the first few years of working in hospitals and in general practice, I had no interest in that wacky stuff at all.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
And I would have dismissed it, I'm sure. But I saw there was some famous, in my world anyway, famous research in the Lancet about the use of hypnosis in irritable bowel syndrome. And I was a pragmatist always. I wanted to find things that worked. So I thought I'd sign up to do some hypnosis training, which I did. And I was doing hypnosis for IBS and a few other things. And the more I did the hypnosis, though, the more I thought, well, I need some more knowledge of psychology and psychotherapy. So I did the training in that. And then I got into I've got into doing some, I'd hesitate to call it acupuncture, but certainly needling of, we call it Western medical acupuncture, which is often needling at trigger points in muscles. So someone comes in with a pain in the neck, and instead of giving them a brufen tablet, you stick a needle in it, and often it will relieve that very quickly. And then at the same time, I was looking at the tablets, and I was moving from a position of, thank God I don't take that tablet, to a position of, no way would I take that, and no way would I take that, or give it to any member of my family. And at that point, it started to become a bit impossible to do the job then.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to be obviously healthy, pretty much healthy myself. And I thought, well, is that luck, or is it just partly the way I lived my life? And so it was a gradual process. And then I started one day a week. Maybe even I started one afternoon a week, just doing Plymouth Holistic Doctor, just doing holistic medicine, psychotherapy.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, exactly. And that spread to a day. And then I gave up the partnership and just did GP locums for a while. And then I gave up altogether. And I'm prescribed the drug for about 5 years now.
That is amazing. I think it's so cool. And do you find lots more success now in your the people that see you?
Well, it's yes and no, of course.
Okay. You
would expect that answer, because the number of people I see, of course, is far fewer. So as a GP, I might have been seeing 50 people in a day, and now I only see 6 or 7.
Right.
So from the point of view of those numbers, obviously it's far less.
Yeah.
But as a GP, I very rarely cured anybody. And of course,
really?
I don't cure anybody now, but people do get cured sometimes.
Right.
Whatever their problem was they started off with, they no longer have it at all, and they're not taking any medication at all, so that's it. Whereas as a GP, you can say, okay, this person had high blood pressure, now they haven't. but they're taking those 3 tablets for the rest of their life. So the blood pressure is managed, it hasn't gone away.
Yeah, very true.
That's the difference. So conventional medicine, there's 2 kinds of problems. There are acute problems like an ear infection or a torn muscle or something, which generally, if you don't do anything, will get better anyway. But you might be able to speed them up with some conventional medicines. And then there are chronic problems which you don't cure, but you manage. You manage arthritis, you manage diabetes, you manage blood pressure, you manage heart disease, but you never even look really to curing them.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to cure them.
Yeah, and
I
that's
can't
where
say I
you
always
get
do
onto
it, but
psychosomatic, is that what
Yeah.
it's called?
yeah.
And for people who have no idea what that is,
Yeah.
explain that.
Well, it's much misunderstood, because if you say that I think this problem is psychosomatic, people translate that immediately into what you're saying it's all in the head.
Yeah.
And that's because they didn't do Latin in school, of course.
Yeah.
Because psyche does, I think it means spirit actually, but it refers to the mind. Somatic means the body. So it means, okay, this might have started off in the mind as an emotional disturbance, but it's ended up in physical. So it doesn't matter how physical something is, but you can get heart attacks that are psychosomatic, you can get cancers that are psychosomatic, at least in part, because most things are multifactorial. There are a number of things that play a part. Somebody might be genetically predisposed to something, but in most cases they still need an environmental trigger to get it going, and that might be a combination of eating a rubbish diet, living a sedentary lifestyle, taking in a bunch of poisons, and being stressed in some kind of way. So something could be psychosomatic and be hugely physical disease. It's not like an imaginary condition.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for the root. Now, looking for the root can mean going back to the depression we were talking about just now. It could be talking about actually looking for the root in the gut or in the magnesium levels or something of that nature, or it could be looking for the emotional vibration that's set that off in the first place.
So it's never always emotion. It could be a physical thing purely.
Yeah, I have a sneaky kind of suspicion that there is always emotion at the root of it, and that the physical thing is just the way of manifesting it.
Right, yeah.
My kind of the chap I shared the building with, Hamish, who is a functional medicine practitioner, osteopath, naturopath, and general superman. He has a sneaking suspicion that everything comes from the guts,
Really?
and I have a sneaking suspicion that everything starts from the mind. But we both kind of honour each other's stuff.
Yeah.
But we probably quietly, secretly think that our stuff's more
Yeah, of
important than
course.
his.
So how would you advise people to get emotions out? Because it sounds so simple, obviously, but people just trap that stuff day in, day out.
Yeah. So this is a mindfulness practice. So I guess you can start with some simple mindfulness. You know, get the Headspace app, get the Calm app, get the Buddhify app. There's also the Waking Up app. And all these things have their merits. So you start off by being mindful, because you need to be mindful as the first step to notice what emotion I'm having, or even to notice that I am having one. I definitely wouldn't have had any awareness that I was having any years ago, none at all. So once you become aware that you're having some, okay, so I think it's best, for me, it works best to go off on my own somewhere and just sit and perhaps name the emotion first of all. Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it sadness? Just a name. If you can find one, sometimes you've no idea, in which case don't worry about it. Don't bother about naming it, because more important than that is then to go into the body And you can, if you want, you can name what you're feeling in your body. You know, my shoulders are tight, or my guts are churning, or there's a heat in my neck. But even more important than that, again, is just to feel it and turn the analysis off, turn the words off, and just tune into the body. Allow the feeling to be there. Understand that it's sort of a message from your past. Acknowledge it, welcome it in even. And as you do so, you can integrate it into your experience. And that will have a twofold benefit. Number one, it will nearly always make you feel better at the time, or a few minutes after. But also it just takes a little bit off your accumulated baggage, so that the next time something comes along, you get a little less reaction. And as the years go by, less and less and less.
Yeah.
Because it's like you've got this big sack of shit on your shoulder that you've been carrying around all the time, and you're gradually emptying it out. And yeah, you can walk a bit taller and a bit lighter because you're not carrying such a load anymore. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. It sounds so simple coming from you, but you know, when you go out into the world and live your normal life, it feels so much harder than that. So
there's a plug for The Presence Process by Michael Brown, or have a look at some Michael Brown on YouTube. I've done The Presence Process probably 5 or 6 times. It's just a book. Doing the process is just a book with a twice daily meditation. And I'm doing it again at the moment, actually.
Awesome.
And what for me, other people may find other ways forward. Some people like to use tapping, EFT.
Yeah, I remember Mum doing that at some point.
Yeah, I did it for a while, but I prefer the process that I use now for me. Some people get great results, both individually for themselves and for their clients and patients with tapping, and great. It's a great tool.
Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Go on in.
Pick a number.
Well, as I'm going to be 60 shortly.
Very shortly.
We'll have 60.
It's a good one. Okay. In what ways are you prone to addiction?
I used to drink too much.
Yeah. That's not an issue for you anymore?
Well, like any... I'm not saying that I was an alcoholic, but any alcoholic would tell you only live for today. Today I will be sober. So, but I've a kind of calm feeling that that's done for me.
Yeah.
So it's been a couple of years, probably since I was nearly a couple of years since I was drunk last, or since I had more than probably 2 glasses of wine on any single occasion. So. I still treat it with great respect, alcohol, and so I treat it with some respect now, but I like it. So when I have, not every week, but some Saturdays, or I will have 2 glasses of red wine, and once I've had them, I always make a point of just noticing how that feels, and what it usually feels like is it feels like a good dose for me.
Yeah.
Because it gives me a little glow and a little smile, and that feels like a good dose. Yeah. So I think if you're using any drug, why not have the optimum dose? So more is not necessarily better.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely figured that one out time and time again. And it doesn't stop you from going.
So the other thing is, for me, drink was a great messenger for me, because it brought me shame and embarrassment and humiliation, really, from finding out what you'd done when you'd been drunk. And it took me all those years to realise that the shame and the humiliation, the embarrassment, that was the message. And so once I'd processed that, the messenger, which was the drink, wasn't needed anymore. So I didn't need to get drunk anymore because I'd got the message. Right. Different for different people. And I also use drink because of social anxiety, of course.
Do you have that?
I did.
Did
yeah,
you? I didn't
definitely.
know you suffer with that. Is that when you and Mum were together around that?
Yeah, I don't think I ever would have noticed it because in any social situation, we always used to have a drink.
Yeah.
So it was never apparent
Yeah.
because it was always there. But if I did ever have to do public speaking, I'd be really nervous.
I mean, I always have to have a drink before a gig
Yeah.
for that exact reason.
But then, a few years ago, obviously I joined the public speaking club, and then last year, ironically, I was president of the public speaking club. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah, that
For a
is.
socially anxious, quiet person.
Yeah, that is actually quite amazing.
Yeah.
You're an amazing person.
Yeah, thank you. Well, again, if I am, don't give me any credit for that, because somebody made me that. It's not my program. I didn't choose it.
What a perfect way to end. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Good.
And I love you very much. And I
love
hope
you
everyone
too.
enjoyed. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Wow. My dad, ladies and gentlemen. I absolutely loved that chat. I won't lie, I was a bit nervous going into it. I thought, is this the right thing to be doing? But it was just so wonderful to hear what he had to say. And I'm sure all of my family that listened found it very insightful. Just so grateful to him for letting me do that, and for him to come up to Bristol and do that with me was just so special. So thanks, Dad, if you're listening. I love you very much. And if you guys would like to hear more about my dad or anything that he has to say, you can go to plymouthholisticdoctor.co.uk. And other than that, just really want to encourage you to open up to your family if you want to, or just open up to the people around you more, because the conversations that you have and the bonds that can deepen because of conversations like this are just amazing. And if any of the questions asked today resonated with you in any way, then feel free to let me know on Instagram at WeDiveDeeper, or you can follow my personal page, which is just at Kate McGill. And last but not least, you can get these episodes earlier by supporting me on patreon.com/Kate McGill. So thanks again, Dad, and thanks to everyone that's listened and enjoyed. Let me know if you enjoyed this one. And don't forget to share with your friends if you did, because it really helps. Okay, have an awesome couple of weeks, guys. Bye.